Hi everyone, and welcome to Market Audience and Social Research, SPSS, workshop number 6. I'm Kelly Koff, and in today's workshop, I'll help you learn how to test for differences using the independent sample t-test and one-way ANOVA functions in SPSS. Okay, for this exercise, we need to open up our Hobbit data file. So if you're not sure how to do this, just go back to the SPSS tutorial exercise number 1 and work through that. This tutorial also extends on what we did in week 5, so make sure that you've attempted that tutorial before you attempt this one. Okay, so let's get started. First of all, we're going to need to open our Hobbit data file. So just opening SPSS, find our file and hit open. And now here's our data. So before we start our analysis today, the first thing that we need to understand is what today's objectives are. So what we're going to do today is we're going to learn how to use the independent samples t-test and the analysis of variation, and use them to investigate whether or not a significant difference exists in a sample between two or more subsamples. So if you have a look on page 17 of your workbook, there's 2 questions that we need to answer. The first is that Jeff wonders if the Hobbit Choice restaurant is more appealing to women than it is to men, or vice versa. So for this question, our null hypothesis would be that there's no difference in appeal between genders, and our alternative hypothesis here is that a difference in appeal, but there is a difference in the appeal between the genders. So before we get started on that, we'll just have a look at the second thing which we need to do today, and that is if we think about the generalization that upscale establishments are appealing to higher income households and less appealing to lower income households, whether this is true or not for the Hobbit Choice restaurant. So with this one, our null hypothesis here is going to be that there is no difference based on income, and our alternative hypothesis, however, is going to be that there is a difference. So we've got a couple of things that we need to get through today. So don't forget from last week that we learned that the null hypothesis is that there's nothing going on with the data, so no funny business, no peculiarities. Our alternative hypothesis, however, is that there is something. There's an alternative explanation other than pure chance, that there's something contributing to the relationship between a couple of variables. Okay, so we'll get started on our first question. To do that, first we need to go up to Analyze, just in your taskbar, up the top here, and click on that. Then go down to Compare Means. Find that one. And then we're going to go across to the Independent Samples t-test and click on that. That's going to open up the Independent Sample t-test dialog box. So we're going to put our test variable, which is likely, across to the test variables pane. And then for the grouping variable, we're going to find gender, just down the bottom here. And then bring that across. So I can either highlight that and click on this arrow button here, or I can just drag and drop it over into the field. So there's no right or wrong way to do that as long as it comes across. Before we do anything else though, we better go to Define Groups and just click on that one. And for Group 1, we'll enter a 1 for our males, and for Group 2, we'll enter a 2 for females. So we'll just put the 1 in the first field, 2 in the second field, and then hit Continue. Now that we've done that, you can see that the question marks here have changed to a 1 and a 2. Now we can hit OK and let SPSS run that analysis. Now when we interpret these results, we need to look at the significance column. That's this one just here. So here we can see that there's a significance, or a p-value, of 0.538. So from week 5, if you remember, we learned that we need a p-value of less than 0.05 to reject the null hypothesis. And this p-value here is 0.538. So because that's greater than 0.05, this means that we can accept the null hypothesis and agree that the sample shows that there is absolutely no significant difference between the restaurant's appeal to men or to women. Okay, so now we can take a look at the second question. So for this question, we need to perform a one-way ANOVA. So we'll just go back to our database. And to do the one-way ANOVA, the first thing we need to do is click on Analyze up in the top bar here. Then again, we go down to Compare Means. And this time we're going to go across and find one-way ANOVA, which is the last option just on this list. Then we're going to click on that. That's going to open up the one-way ANOVA dialog box. So the first thing we need to do here is bring across our first variable, likely, into the dependents list. So I'm just going to click on likely and bring that across using the arrow. Then I'm going to find the factor that we're looking at here, which is income. This one here, just close to the bottom. Then I'll bring that across to the factor field. Now before we run the analysis, we'll just click on Post Hoc over here. And once this button opens up, we're just going to make sure that Duncan is clicked, which is just here. And our significance level here, just take note of that, 0.05, so that's fine for this one. We'll hit Continue. And now we can click on OK. Then our SPSS gives us our receipt and our analysis of variation. So the first thing to take note of here is the significance level, which is our p-value. Again, it's less than 0.5. So with 0.00, we can now move on to the homogeneous subsets and have a look at what that data is telling us. So remember that this significance level of 0 means that we can reject the null hypothesis. And then when we move on to our next table, we know that at least one of these income levels has a significant result. So we just need to have a look at this table and then we can find out which one. So here the Duncan's test table shows us that there's 4 different groups of significant difference. So they're just down here, 1, 2, 3, 4. The first subset shows that the lowest income groups, these ones here. The second subset group, second highest incomes, so that's 25,000 to 74,999,000. The third subset is just the 75 to 999,999. And then the fourth subset is those highest 2 incomes there, which is 100,000 to 150,000 plus. So what does this mean? Well, if you have a look at the lowest numbers here, they're against the lowest incomes. The highest scores are against the highest income. So because we know we can reject the null hypothesis, and our lowest scores are at the lowest income level and our highest scores are at the highest level, what this is saying really is that the data from the Hobbit's Choice restaurant really does align with what was suspected. And that is that upscale establishments, which includes the Hobbit's Choice, really are more appealing to higher income households and less appealing to lower income households. So the Hobbit's Choice data absolutely supports this claim. And we found that out by doing the Duncan with the one-way ANOVA. Okay, so if you want more information on how to interpret these results, just have a look at chapters 6 and 7 in the SPSS analysis without anguish textbook. Don't forget to save your output and upload it to the LMS. And until next week, take care.